Well, it was a different kind of night at Doak Campbell Stadium. First of all, there was a pretty good crowd, 60,000 people here for Parents Weekend, and a pretty complete performance, not a flawless performance from the Florida State football team, but a pretty complete overall performance. They beat NC State 31-13 to get their improved to 2-1 in the ACC.
Yeah, man.
Second straight ACC win for the first time since 2016. A lot of good things, some bad things, a lot of personal fouls, 8 sacks given up by the offense. But overall, this is a football team that you could see another step in the progress. And Willie Taggart and the players seem very excited about where this program is right now.
Man, I think it all stems on the defense, or stems from the defense. I don't recognize the defense that they played against Louisiana Monroe isn't this defense anymore. I tried to ask Willie about that post game. I didn't word my question real well, but I just don't. Is it as simple as just going back to something that works for them? It just seems like maybe it's because they know what they're doing now, so they play harder and they play faster. But it looks completely different. That's 3 weeks in a row where they've allowed just almost nothing in the run game, and I thought that was pretty pointed what Willie Taggart said afterwards. He's like, look, we've been looking for something we're good at. And we're definitely good at stopping the run now. You can say that. And that's a big thing, man. That's a really big deal to stop the run. And I thought for the 3rd week in a row against a team that really likes to run the ball, they kind of imposed their will up front and didn't allow them to do much.
Yeah, talking to some of the defensive players, and if you check out the rest of our gaze around our YouTube channel,
sure,
or go to Warchant, get a lot of interviews with players. Corey Durden and Leonard Warner were really just kind of open about what's changed. And they said that really after that ULM game, which Willie Taggart alluded to when you asked him, that everything changed after that game. And what they said changed is they just stopped playing for themselves and stopped worrying about who was getting the credit and who was making the plays, and really kind of came together and just started doing their job, which sounds simple and sounds fundamental, but I do think that is the deal. I mean, I think they're playing team football now, and I think the ULM game is what really was kind of the wake-up call for them, because they gave up 44 points. Corey Durden said that. He's like, there's no way a team like that should ever score 44 points against us. We realize we've got to get back to doing what we know how to do. And I think that really kind of changed things. And you saw a step against Virginia. They lost the game, but they played much better against the run. You saw a pretty big step, I think, last week against Louisville. And then a huge step today, because I thought really the key stretch for this game was they were up at halftime 21-6 or 17-6. Had 3 opportunities to really pad their lead early in the second half. Got a great field position 3 times down deep inside NC State territory. Didn't score any of those times. It had sacks or just kind of fell apart, missed a field goal. But the defense stopped NC State every single time, and that was totally different than what we've seen earlier this season.
Absolutely. And again, when you look at that Louisiana Monroe team, that game, I think it's the last play of this game, the game's over. I mean, it's over. It's a minute left. You're up by 18 points. It doesn't matter if NC State scores a touchdown. Amari Gaynor comes and strips a kid from behind at the half-yard line to cause a fumble to essentially end the game. They played harder on that play, in my opinion, than they did in overtime against Louisiana Monroe. Like, it just something flipped. That says something. They're not a great team. We get that. And these, not to be Debbie Downer, these might be the 2 worst teams they play in the ACC this year. They're not very good, either one of those teams. But last year they played a lot of teams that weren't very good. And they played a couple teams at least Louisiana Monroe at the start of this season that wasn't very good. And they played terribly. Now they're looking like a competent team. They look different. It just looks different. I don't expect them to go and beat Clemson. I don't know what I expect. But it's been a really positive sign to see, number one, the offense scored when it had to. It answered right after NC State scored to make it 24-13. They went right back down the field and answered. And then the defense is just worlds better. Just worlds better. I thought Barnett would be fired by now. And now he might get a raise, folks.
Let's not get carried away. Let's not get carried away. It's like Clark sarcasm. On the other side of the ball, you would think the big story would have been the fact that James Blackman didn't play on Thursday when we spoke to Willie Taggart. He was very emphatic that if James Blackman was healthy, he was going to start in this game. Talking to him after the game, he said that on Friday, James tweaked his knee a little bit. Didn't seem like that in pregame. I mean, James Blackman was running around full speed, running. I mean, now most of it in straight lines, but I mean, everything he did, he looked really good. All pregame warm-ups went with the first team through everything, and then they come out for the game, and Alex Hornibrook, your starting quarterback, didn't get off to a great start. No. Alex missed some plays, held on to the ball too long. They ran a lot of slow-developing plays, it seemed like, and NC State made him pay for it with 4 sacks early. By middle of the second quarter, they'd already given up 4 sacks. Ended up giving up 8 for the night, but hit a lot of big plays. I mean, Cam had a decent night, ran for about 80, 85 yards, and a big touchdown on a 4th and 1 play. But the big plays in the passing game, Hornibrook to Tamarian Terry, 2 touchdowns, and Ontario Wilson, another touchdown. That was kind of what the offense, that's really what the offense had, was just some big plays.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing, though. You know what I mean? Like, it's always nice to have big plays instead of what we saw last year. And I know I keep harping on that, but last year, I don't think the offense even played particularly well in this game. They scored 31 points. Did they do that? I think they scored over 30 once all of last season. So, again, you're seeing the steps. You're seeing a program that it is improving. It might be a good team maybe by the end of this year or starting next year, but it is an improving program. And now you're above, it's the first time they've won back-to-back ACC games since 2016. I don't think that's something you dismiss. I know we're at Florida State. I know where we are, where I'm talking from. I know all the games and players that have been in here. But where this program was 2 years ago, and last year in particular, to win 31-13 over any ACC program, I think is a good sign.
Yeah, and like going back to the Corey Durden.
And they dropped 9 interceptions. They could have scored 55 points if they could hold on to interceptions.
That's one thing I was going to touch on, was that this was a pretty dominating performance in terms of the score, 31-13. Florida State gets the win. They're in the victory formation at the end of a game, something Florida State hasn't done very often in a long time.
I'm surprised they knew how to do it without having to call timeout.
How do you do this again? Well, they've seen it a couple times from other teams.
That's true.
But the thing about this game was they had three huge scoring opportunities early in the third quarter that they didn't cash in on. They dropped about a dozen interceptions. They had a slew of personal fouls, some of which should not have been personal fouls, and they still won by 18 points. And again, that's not a good NC State team. We knew that coming in. Even though they're 3-1, we did not expect NC State to be a very good team. But that does speak to the potential of this program. They could be a solid college football team, which again, 3 weeks ago you would not have expected.
Well, and I think, if they lose this game, then I think a 3-9, 4-8 is definitely on the table. They didn't. Not only did they not lose, they kind of controlled the game, and that's really, honestly, other than the stretch last week, that's 2 straight games they've kind of controlled most of the game. They were the better team for most of the game, and you could maybe even say that about Virginia too. They were they were better than Virginia, maybe not much better, but they were better than Virginia for much of that game too. They're showing that they belong, they're competing, they're not getting embarrassed. In fact, they kind of embarrassed NC State a little bit tonight. All that stuff adds up, man. We'll see where it goes, but we haven't had a lot of nights like this around here lately. This is the first night game in this stadium on a Saturday night since the Florida game, 2016. They won that game 31-13 too, by the way.
Finally, Florida State can win a game and celebrate. Nobody's going to get mad at them for celebrating. And this is a game where they should. They should.
By the way, they said 60,000.
Seemed like more than that.
Or do they not know how to count people in here anymore? Like what? Why? There's no way it was only 60,000.
It seemed like it was closer to 65 or so. It was a good crowd.
Yeah, it was a really good crowd, and they were loud. A lot of people stayed throughout. I know that's a weird thing to say at a place like Florida State, but we'll take what we can get. But it was a loud crowd and an involved crowd, and I think it made a difference. It was an actual home field advantage for the first time probably since that Florida game in 2016.
Well, now with 2 weeks off, well, not 2 weeks off, but they have a bye week before the Clemson game. And again,
who's the starting quarterback against Clemson?
That's what I was going to ask you. We didn't ask Willie Taggart about that, if you're wondering.
He ain't answering.
It didn't come up because really, I'm not a fan of those questions at those moments because it kind of puts him on a spot where if he comes out and says, this happened back in the day with Coach Bowden, where one of the other quarterbacks, either Adrian McPherson or Fabian Walker or somebody like that, would come off the bench and play well, and everybody wanted to change a quarterback, and Coach Bowden would say, well, Chris Ricks is still our starting quarterback, and everybody would lose their minds and get mad about what they saw. I didn't think it was probably fair to ask him about that tonight because anything he says is probably going to irritate a lot of the fan base. I don't think we're going to know till next week, but my guess is James Blackman's still your starting quarterback. I think that that's legitimate, that if he was healthy, if they weren't worried about his knee, that James would have been the starting quarterback. I don't know that that's etched in stone for the rest of the season. But I think if James is healthy, which I think he would be, I think he still gets to start against Clemson. What say you?
I agree, but I do think they're going to have a plan for Hornibrook to play, and I think moving forward, it's going to be a good portion of that. I don't know that we're going to see a guy play from start to finish an entire game. I think if tonight, if Blackman had been healthy and Hornibrook was getting sacked every other play, maybe Blackman comes in for a little bit. I thought Hornibrook played pretty well. Did hold on to the ball a little bit too long, but when he was getting the ball out of his hands quickly, man, he knows what he's doing with it, and he gets it there. I know he doesn't have the prettiest arm in the world, the biggest arm, throw the prettiest ball, but he gets it out quickly and where he wants it if it's open immediately. So he does see that. Now, when it's not open, he struggles, and he took some sacks and some hits. But overall, I think he completed 29 passes. He completed 29 to 10 different receivers. I mean, that's pretty good stuff, man.
You're usually the guy with the...
Tamarian didn't flash the peace sign at
No,
all?
he didn't. He just blew a big kiss to the crowd.
Well, that's nice.
It was. It was after the play, which was really nice. It would be bad if he was doing it on the way to the end zone. You're usually the guy with the creative solutions. What do you think about this? And then we'll wrap it up. James Blackman's a starting quarterback, and Alex Winterbrook's your closer. He comes in calm down the stretch, third quarter, fourth quarter. He's got some composure down the stretch.
Well, what he did do well, I don't know. That's crazy. I don't know that we're going to go that route. But I thought what they did do well in this game, and kind of a little bit at the end of the Louisville game, is they do milk the clock a little bit now. He's good about that. He's good about kind of pacing himself and not rushing the line. And that last drive with Cam, where he finally busted it, I think they were in like 4 or 5 minutes. They won the time of possession battle in this game for the first, they had like 30 minutes. People that say that doesn't matter, hey, baby, they just had their best game in 3 years, and it's because they won the time of possession battle.
All right, we're going to wrap it up from Doak Campbell Stadium. We'll have plenty of coverage at warchant.com. Thanks, Aslan, Corey, Austin, the intern, Gene, back up in the press box. We'll talk to you next time.